Good evening, this is Brass Tax. I'm Zaka Jacob. The Election Commission has weighed in on the Freebies debate, or the Revdi culture as the Prime Minister called it. It's now floated a proposal that makes sure that all political parties will have to disclose the financials of how they plan to fund the freebies that they intend to give voters. They also want to know the impact that this will have on state finances. Remember, many of these parties which promise are not able to fulfill those promises or bleed the exchequer dry in trying to implement those freebie promises. But most opposition parties have dismissed this, saying that this is interfering in the democratic process, that they have a right to communicate directly with the voters and apprise them of whatever programs they intend to implement and let the voters make an informed choice. The question is, and the bottom line is this is what it boils down to. In a democracy, are political parties allowed to make promises unrealistic as they may seem and unviable financially as they may seem on the face of it? Or should there be checks and balances on what can be promised and what can be delivered? But first, the story of the day.
Amid the raging debate over the freebie culture in the country, the Election Commission of India took the first step in the direction of political parties furnishing authentic and adequate information to the voters on the issue. The poll body has proposed a pro forma for the recognized national and state political parties to furnish details of the financial implications of the promises made in their election manifesto and how they will be financing them. The proposal comes amid Supreme Court's intervention on the freebies debate, asking the Election Commission to come up with guidelines on the issue. While the BJP supported the EC move, Aam Aadmi Party decided to approach the issue with caution.
फ्रीबीज को रोकना बहुत जरूरी है। राज्यों के ऊपर 70 लाख करोड़ का कर्जा पहले ही है। केंद्र और राज्य मिला दें तो लगभग 150 लाख करोड़ का कर्ज है। अगर इसे अभी भी नहीं रोका गया, आने वाले समय में हमारी आर्थिक स्थिति पाकिस्तान और लंका जैसी हो जाएगी।
जनता इसलिए टैक्स देती है कि उनको और उनकी जिंदगी में जो सहूलियतें हैं वो सरकार दे सके, और वो सब देना सरकारों की मूल जिम्मेदारी है।
The Election Commission has also sought views of political parties by 19th of October on the proposed changes. While the EC's plan is a step to bring the topic of financing schemes and prudence into political discourse, the big question remains, will political parties who have been doling out freebies since long agree to it?
On the talking point this evening, Vinit Goenka is spokesperson of the BJP, will be joined by Akshay Marathe, spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party. Salem Dharanidharan is DMK spokesperson. Sanjay Jha, political analyst, will also be joining us. Vijay Sardana, advocate and economist, and Professor Nalin Mehta is group consulting editor with Network 18. Let me start with Vinit Goenka. You know, the contention that's being raised by most opposition parties is an election manifesto, a campaign is direct communication between political parties and the voters. If the voters like something that's being promised, let them vote for it. If they don't, they will not vote for it. So why is the Election Commission, the Supreme Court, and indirectly the central government getting into this debate? After all, the central government has also given 80 crore people free ration over the last couple of years. Wouldn't you qualify that as a freebie?
Zaka, thank you for inviting me on the show. Ram Ram to you and to everybody on the show. See, there is a small difference between two words, welfare and freebies. But there is a big impact. Small difference, but very big impact on the exchequer and the health of the economy of the country. When any welfare scheme is done with an intention to uplift poor, create parity, remove disparity, give equal opportunity, remove the gaps, then it is a welfare scheme where people, population, citizens benefit. But if the intention is purely to promise something which is not feasible, with an intent to grab the power, to come in the election fray and get elected, and then let whatever happens to the exchequer, let whatever happens to the state, if that's the intention, then it is freebies. And in this particular case, in various parties, we have seen that they have not applied their mind where the money will come from. They have not thought about the impact on the treasury, the impact on the health of the exchequer of the state. And I think they should reconsider. Small benefits for people which will help them in their life should be certainly done. I'll give you a small example.
Okay.
When somebody needs some help, like for example in COVID, if they are hungry, they are not getting jobs, they are back to their places without jobs and without certainty, then providing them ration is a need. But if the same thing is promised, saying that you elect me, let me come to the power, and I would like to, give away the free ration to you, then it would have become freebies. So I think they have to be thought upon this. I'll give you one more example.
Yeah, one second, Vinitji. I've got 5 other guests I need to go to, so allow me, please, ask for your indulgence. Akshay Marathe, what the Election Commission is saying today is not that political parties like yourselves cannot make freebie promises. You can make freebie promises. What the Election Commission is saying that there will be a prescribed format for disclosure by political parties on the promises made necessary to bring standardization. There should be adequate disclosure of the financial impact of these promises because the electorate needs to know about the financial impact, and also that the financial implication of the promises and the impact on the state's fiscal health. So go ahead and promise whatever you want to promise. Like, for example, your party has been promising free power in Gujarat, you promised it in Punjab. You're free to do that, but also include in your manifesto how much that is going to cost and where this money is going to come from. That's a legitimate and a fair ask from the Election Commission.
Of course, Zaka, I don't think there is any dispute when it comes to the demand from the Election Commission or the request from the Election Commission that political parties should explain where their welfare measures are going to be financed from. But Zaka, let's take a step back. This debate has come up now because of the impending Gujarat and Himachal state elections, right? Now, if you're an ordinary Gujarati voter watching this debate right now on CNN News 18, you are probably thinking that the Gujarat government, which BJP has been running for the last 30 years, has not given free electricity, free water, free high quality education, free healthcare. Then how is it that the Gujarat government run by the BJP has racked up a debt of 3 lakh crore rupees? So the question that comes to the ordinary voter's mind is, if these other parties that say that we are against freebies of free power and free water have not been providing all of these services for free, then where is their money going? Where is the taxpayer money going in the state of Gujarat? So this is question number 1. Question number 2 is, why is it that this question has only arisen when Mr. Kejriwal is making these promises in Gujarat and not when the other political parties have been making similar promises? I'll tell you why. Because in Delhi, Mr. Kejriwal has shown that giving free electricity, free water, and all of the other free schemes that the AAP has launched is possible without running a deficit. Delhi is the only state in India, Zaka, which has delivered on all of its promises of welfare without running a single year in a deficit. We are a revenue surplus state. So when you have an IITian politician who knows finance, who understands economics, who understands how free power really encourages people to engage in more economic productivity, when you have a politician like that, he's able to run finances in a very prudent fashion, and that's what Delhi has shown us today, which is why the promises that Mr. Kejriwal makes
the distinction that's being made, whether it's the Supreme Court or the central government, what the Prime Minister called it as Revdi culture, is that fine, you go ahead and promise free electricity, but you are promising this to those who are also capable of paying for this electricity. Why would somebody who is willing to and capable of paying for something, why should he or she be given that same commodity free of cost? But be that as it may, let me bring in the other guests. Let me bring in Mr. Dharanidharan, Sanjay Jha also into the conversation. Mr. Dharanidharan, the distinction that's being made is when you're providing free food, let's say for example, during COVID time for people, poor people who don't have a means of employment, that cannot be a freebie, that is a welfare measure. Whereas when the DMK government promises free color TVs and other parties there, try to outmatch by promising free wet grinder and free laptops and smartphones, that is a freebie. You are basically giving this to people who are not deserving, and surely this is not a welfare measure that will enable that person to go ahead and either make a livelihood or better the livelihood of that person. How does free color TV, free wet grinder, free laptop and smartphone make anybody's life or the quality of that person's life better?
The main question is, who decides what is a good freebie and what is a bad freebie? Does the Election Commission of India have the intellectual capacity to decide on it? I don't think so. To decide what is a good freebie or a bad freebie, you need to have range of experts, PhDs from an economist to an anthropologist to a sociologist and whatnot. For example, when DMK announced Color TV, people said it was a bad freebie. In fact, the term freebie is meaningless and it's a misnomer, but they said it's a bad freebie. I'll give the term and use the term. But research from Brown University professors who have nothing to do with Tamil Nadu or India, anthropologists and sociologists, it was published by the Oxford University Press, say women got empowered. In fact, when the scheme was launched, our former Chief Minister Kalaignar also said this scheme is to empower women. They said after Color TVs were announced, and after 3-4 years after evaluation, it was found that more women, children in rural areas were in school. They were less perceptive to beatings by the husband, and there were preference for woman child in rural areas increased. That's because they were able to see how people in urban areas lived. And this is not just the research; just did not focus Tamil Nadu. It also focused certain countries in South America and also Kenya. So this is absolutely wrong. And again, I'll tell you, Tamil Nadu has low inflation. Food inflation in Tamil Nadu is 4% compared to an all-India inflation about 8%. Gujarat has 12%. That is because of universal periods we have. Remember, in 97 when DMK was in power, Union government wrote about 4 to 5 letters saying Tamil Nadu should shift to targeted intervention. But our leader, Kalaignar, said no, we will have universal periods. This universal periods has been helping Tamil Nadu to have low inflation. For example, vegetable inflation in Tamil Nadu is 2.1% compared to 27% in Gujarat. Again, I'll tell you, if you think freebies are the reason for the state's exchequer getting spoiled, that's not the reason. In 2011, when DMK demitted office, we were a revenue surplus state by 2,500. Our loan in terms of percentage of GDP was about 17%. Best finance management. But the same finances under AADMK, under Edappadi Palaniswamy, the revenue deficit worsened and the revenue deficit became minus 60,000 crores. It is not because he spent on welfare schemes. It's because the revenue which the state should get, right, that reduced. During our time, the states used to get about 12% revenue from the GDP. But during AADMK time, it reduced 9% simply because of mismanagement and lack of ability in administration.
No.
And rent seeking, right?
Let me quote from the SBI report, and a lot of people have cited this as the basis for why there is suddenly an attack on this Revdi culture. And Sanjay Jha, let me get you in. The SBI report, it's got... Yeah, one second. Let me get the others also in, please. Thank you. The SBI's India Research report, it's called EcoRap, says that India must free itself of freebies. It goes on to say that we expect a Supreme Court panel to fix a band, say 1% of state GDP or 1% of state-owned tax collections or 1% of state revenue expenditure for welfare schemes. With this, the desired welfare schemes can be implemented, and the remaining, the parties need to explain where they are funding from. I mean, like I said, it is no one's case that PDS should be withdrawn. That everybody in their right mind agrees that yes, PDS is a necessity, it is a welfare scheme. Whether it is, health insurance for poor folks. Again, nobody in their right mind is calling that a freebie. But when you promise free color TVs and free electricity to everyone, to the general population, then there is a problem because it is sending your state finances into a tizzy.
Zaka, I do believe that this debate needs a resolution because, it has to go beyond the rhetoric. But I'll give you 2 points that are very relevant in our conversation. Number one, you're talking about a country that doesn't have a social security apparatus, no networks. There is no real welfare model that we have. And unlike the Western democracies, and you're talking about a country with 350 million people living below the poverty line, which is less than $2 a day, and where 1% of Indians have 65% of wealth. So you got both poverty and inequality. It's a double whammy, number one. Point number two, a perfect example of how politicians don't understand economics is what Prime Minister Modi said in Parliament in 2014 when he mocked Manrega and said this is the Congress's and the UPA's most disastrous, monumental underperformance, signal. And look at what Manrega has done, especially during the pandemic. It is considered, by the way, to be one of the best social security employment schemes in the world, at least the biggest one for sure. Now, the challenge, Zaka, is this, and I think this is where we need to have probably a meaningful conversation here, is who pays for these? Now, I agree with everybody on the panel that political parties, when they make these manifestos, making these preposterous promises, they are indeed fooling the people of the country. And I do hope the Election Commission comes up with an audit so that these political parties are actually shamed in public for actually fooling the public on from whom they get the votes.
No, the who pays for it, who pays for it is very clear. I mean, it's only the taxpayers who pay for it. And that's about what, 6%, 7% of the population of this country. But Nalin Mehta, again, the problem is.
Just give me 30 seconds. Just give me 30 seconds.
Okay, quickly, Sanjay. I got Nalin as well as Professor Sardana waiting. Yeah, quickly.
Yeah. So, two very quick points. In India, we celebrate the rise in GST collections, not recognizing it's a regressive tax. Even the poor are paying the government through buying goods and services. The second point, no political party in this country, including many eminent panelists, will tell you publicly that do we have the courage to increase taxes, especially on the high net worth individuals and even corporate taxes on those who are possibly in areas that demand to be taxed at a higher level. If you don't have higher direct taxes, this country will always have this debate.
Okay.
But if you pay for it,
Nalin Mehta, the issue again comes down to, who can pay and who cannot pay. Clearly, all of the government's finances are being taxed by taxpayer money, which is a very, very small pool of people. Like I said, not more than 6 or 7% of the population. Now, it comes down to, are you going to give a particular thing, a particular item, let's say in this case, free power, to everyone in that particular state? For example, in Delhi, let's talk about Delhi. Why should all 1 crore people of Delhi or 1.5 crore people of Delhi get free power, when maybe there's 30 lakh of them, maybe there's 50 lakh of them who can very well afford to pay for that power? That is the distinction between a freebie and a welfare scheme. No one has a problem with great government school education. After all, those who go there are the ones who absolutely need government school education. So no one has a problem with that. But when you say free power to the entire population up to whatever X number of units, that means that whether you're living in Sainik farms or whether you're living in a Jhuggi Jhopadi, both of you get the same treatment from the state. That's the issue.
You've absolutely hit the nub of the problem, Zaka. This issue is fundamentally about what is the definition of a freebie. One loose definition is it's a free hand for suboptimal economic choices. But of course, you pick up an economist and you'll have you pick up two economists and you'll have two arguments on what's a suboptimal choice. I think the core of the matter, Zaka, is, for example, cereals were added in the PDS program recently. Now, at what point is that a high level nutritional need, and at what point does something like that become extra? What about color TV sets? Now, you take a state like Tamil Nadu, with the Dravidian parties in particular, that's been very intrinsic to the model of politics in Tamil Nadu for 35 years now, and they have the highest number of freebies starting from grinder mixers to television sets and so on in the Jayalalitha regime earlier. And Tamil Nadu is among the most economically well-off states. So so you have there's a genuine debate to be had here outside of politics, outside of the AAP versus BJP debate in Gujarat or the Delhi debate. There is a genuine debate to be had here. I think the Election Commission's point about putting out a consultation paper is really important. You look at fiscally, you look at the states. If you look at the recent RBI paper on where we are heading, you have states like Punjab. There are at least 4 or 5 states: Punjab, Kerala, West Bengal, Andhra, Telangana, all of which their GSDP debt to GSDP ratio is going to be above 40-45% by 2026. We have several states where that ratio is already above 30%. I think we've had some improvement by the latest RBI report in the last few months, but fundamentally, you can't keep spending constantly without having a sense of where the revenue is coming from. Yeah. And I think there is a genuine debate to be had here. Fundamentally, if you look at the coronavirus period, a major reason why India could tide over that period was also because of rations and other essentials that were made available to a very large percentage of the population. That was an essential need. Now, how long is that an essential need for and no one? I think that's what needs to be defined. Therefore, a rational debate on this, which the Supreme Court has talked about, with the Election Commission is now talking about, is, I think, definitely needed. And I think we should keep politics out of that.
Professor Vijay Sardana, one of the reasons why states like Chhattisgarh Jharkhand, Rajasthan, their pension liabilities alone are estimated to be in excess of 3 lakh crores. In the case of Jharkhand, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, pension liabilities are 217%, 190% and 207% vis-a-vis the tax revenues that they earn annually. If just servicing pension, whether it is government employees or whether it is others who have retired, if servicing pension alone is putting such a big burden on the state exchequer, how can we proceed with freebies, whether it's free water, free electricity, free color TVs going forward? Because the state has got to a position where it's not able to manage its own expenses, and then it comes to the center is not giving us enough funds. It used to be 41% before, it's come down now. It used to be 43% before, it's come down now. Then it just gets into this whole political war of words between center and states.
Jaga, good evening to you and all the panel. Let me show you one paper first before I answer. This is a petition which I filed in Supreme Court when the whole debate is going on the freebies. And what I mentioned very clearly, I'm sure your audience can view it. My concern was very simple. There is a need to have a financial statement. Jaka, there is a huge noise there.
Go ahead. I can hear you. We can hear you perfectly fine. Go ahead.
There is a need to have a financial statement with every manifesto because political parties don't calculate what they are promising and from where they will get the money. And my prayer was to Supreme Court, please direct Election Commission that every election manifesto must have a financial statement. And this was filed on 23rd of August 2022. I'm extremely happy that my request, which I made it to the Honorable Court and the EC, somehow clicked the ring. And I think now they are on the way to ensure this, and to supplement this, I filed a separate PIL that make political manifestos financially accountable. Otherwise, politicians don't know what they are promising, how many beneficiaries will be there, what is the cost per unit, and what is the total cost per state, and what is the source of funding. So I think this is what we have to do it. I am extremely happy that my request to Honorable Court and the EC is now heard, and today the discussion paper exactly uses the language and the format which I enclosed is there in public domain. Okay. So I think when debate was going on what is freebie and what is not, when I was appearing in the court on a daily basis, this confusion was deliberately created by some senior lawyers. Let me be very honest. Those who had political leaning and political affiliation. And it was leading to a lot of confusion how to define freebies. Then simplest and the best thing is, please make the whole balance sheet clear to the voters before they go for the vote, that who is going to create how much liability on the state and what is going to be the source of funding, whether we will face the excess or increase in tax implications or reduction in development fund, then voter will have informed choice before they go for voting.
Okay.
So I'm happy that this paper came in public.
No, let me ask Vineet Goenka, again, there are schemes of the central government, Ujjwala, for example, where you give gas cylinders, I think 2 gas cylinders to women women folks of the household, whether it is opening Jan Dhan accounts, whether it is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where some amount of money is given to build a home, or even for that matter, the Kisan Samman Nidhi, which was a big hit before the 2019 elections, where you give 6,000 rupees over a year to farmers. All of this can also be characterized as freebies by the opposition parties. They are saying that, if the central government decides that hamara scheme welfare scheme hai aur baki sabon ka scheme freebies hai, that's not fair.
Thank you for putting these facts in front of the people, and let me answer one by one. First, let me respond to what Mr. Marathi said, that there is no payment due from the Delhi state government. Let me tell you, DISCOM of Delhi, electricity, today itself LG has asked for a detailed inquiry from the state bureaucracy. what happened to why there is a payment due of 21,250 crore rupees from the Discom of Delhi. Delhiites, be aware, any day your electricity can go because Aam Aadmi Party has chosen not to pay 21,250 crore rupees to the power supplying parties. And who is the director appointed by them? Some Mr. Naveen Gupta, who is son of member of parliament of Aam Aadmi Party. And this is the same company where Anil Ambani holds major shares. So they were cursing Anil Ambani till now. They have somebody been planted by themselves and they have denied, they have blocked. In fact, the blame is they have deliberately blocked direct benefit transfer to the beneficiaries so that people may not know who are the beneficiaries. The money would go to Discom. Can Akshay Marathi comment on that? One. Number two, Delhi Jal Board. How many thousand crore rupees loan is pending and they are not paying this for years, and will there be challenges for supply of water? Please let me know. Number three, education, which is must in the city. Let me tell you, 745 schools out of 1027, around 70% of the schools don't have principal. पगार नहीं है प्रिंसिपल का, इसके लिए प्रिंसिपल को अपॉइंट नहीं किया. And let me give you one more figures. Academic year 17-18, 1,55,436 students failed, out of which only 52,000 students were readmitted. 1,02,000 students were thrown out of Delhi school board. If it is not correct, let Akshay Marathi file a case against me. This is because they did not have sufficient fund. Let me give you 2-3 more examples. Whether it is DTC, which is going to dogs.
Zaka, let me respond.
Let him finish. I'll come to you, Akshay.
It is public. So, yeah, I'll Akshay, Mr. Akshay, these figures are there and you know why there are cases been going on. So what they had to do is, when they promised, they went on promising things, they wanted money for that promise as well as they wanted money for their corruption. So they pumped in liquor. And they started getting. So when you throw freebies without thinking these things, then there is something element of corruption comes in your mind where you think that why not do one thing, give freebies so that I keep getting votes and I also make money for myself. And then what you do is you tie up with a cartel of liquor barons and then they say, let people drink, let people drop out of the schools, let there be desperation. They are not giving ration cards because it's a scheme from central government. But at the same time, they are trying to push liquor shops in every ward.
No, that particular excise policy has been cancelled, and I believe.
Now let me answer your question. Let me answer your question. Let me now answer your question.
Mr. Goenka, yield, please. Akshay Marathi, respond. Whether it's Delhi Jal Board,
can I answer you in 30 seconds
Delhi
and then
electricity bills that you owe the power generating and the distribution companies. Where is all that money? You can't say Delhi government is surplus,
when I'm talking to you,
but not pay these suppliers.
Zaka,
let him now respond. Yeah, Akshay Marathi.
Point by point. Point number one is, Zaka, you mentioned in your debate earlier that only 6% of India is tax-paying citizens and everybody else is getting money out of those 6%.
Mr. Marathi,
that is
aren't you supposed to pay 21,000?
Sir, you asked a question. Let him answer. No cross-talk, please. Thank you. No cross-talk. Thank you, sir. No cross-talk. Akshay, yeah.
100% of India pays taxes in the form of indirect taxes, and I was just looking up the numbers while the debate was going on, Zaka. As much tax collection is done through indirect taxation, through GST, etc., as is done through direct taxes. So it's not fair to say that only 6% of people are paying for everybody else. Everybody pays taxes, and everybody gets the benefits out of those taxes. Now, point number two. Everybody on this panel has been saying that free electricity for everybody is a bad thing. Let me explain. It's very important for everyone to understand that in Delhi, only up to 200 units of power is free. If you consume even 1 unit more than that, it does not qualify you for free power and you have to pay the full bill. This is one of the best models of subsidies that Mr. Kejriwal has come up with, which hyper targets those who are in need of free power. And when you give that free power to the poor in Delhi, they have that additional money to spend on other parts of the economy. They can spend it on their child's education. They can spend it on, buying more milk for their children. So it is not as if this money is going into thin air. It is being invested in people so that they are empowered to use their financial resources in a way that actually
please answer also the questions that were asked. I mean, what about the discoms who are owed money? What about the Delhi Jal Board that it's owed money?
Yeah.
What about all of that?
I'm coming to it. Now, to answer your questions about the discoms, when he says that Anil Ambani is getting the money, who is Anil Ambani? Anil Ambani is the person who runs the Delhi private distribution companies, which Aam Aadmi Party is not involved in Delhi. For 20 years, Mr. Anil Ambani has been running these companies. So when the AAP government gives a subsidy to the power distribution companies to give free power, obviously it will go to the distribution companies. Should we give it to the BJP? Like how it used to happen in the past, that the Sarkari taxpayer money would go straight into the hands of the Bharatiya Janata Party. That's not what we want to do. Now, to answer the question of the Delhi Jal Board, the Delhi Jal Board is directly and fully owned by the Delhi government. The loan that Delhi Jal Board has is from the Delhi government itself. So Delhi government is empowered to say that it's okay, you don't have to pay because it is doing the job of the government. This is not a private company that has been given a loan and we are not recovering it. The BJP is so intellectually and morally bankrupt that it doesn't understand these things of how governments function. When it comes to the DTC, let me explain to you. The number of buses of DTC may have come down, but there is another public transport system in Delhi called the DIMTS. And the number of buses in that has substantially gone up in the last 7 years, which is why you don't feel the difference. The people of Delhi are having full public transportation today because the number of buses has not actually come down.
Okay.
Now to take the question, let me answer the final question of the principal, because this is something the BJP keeps saying in every debate. 700 principals of Delhi government schools have not been appointed because the job of appointing principals is with the Union Public Service Commission, not the Delhi government. We are actually, in a tough spot. We have the money to pay.
Incorrect.
We have been writing to UPSC.
Incorrect.
Please appoint
Please
principals.
go and
We
correct
have the
your
money to
mistakes.
pay their salaries. We have the money to pay their salaries, but the BJP's UPSC has not been appointing. Today, let me clarify though. This year, they actually did start appointing principals, and within the year, the appointment process will be complete. So the BJP will not have this point to make by the time you are back on the debate.
Sanjay Jha, I come back to what the election commission, of course, the Supreme Court has formed a high-level panel, and that panel will go into the merits and demerits of freebies versus welfare. But what the election commission has suggested today in this proposal paper that they have put out, which seems reasonably fair, that if you're going to make a promise, then also tell the people who you are promising, whatever it is that you're promising, that what it's going to cost them. Because ultimately, and I keep coming back to it, I disagree with what Akshay has said, that indirect taxes, yes, everybody pays for indirect taxes, but indirect taxes are a bad form of taxation. Governments should try and widen the ambit of direct tax payees, as it were. But what the panel is saying, what the election commission is saying is, make adequate disclosure of the financial impact for the promises that you have made. The disclosure be confined to the financial implication as well as the state's fiscal health, and also mention the financial resources required and the ways to finance the promise made. Election Commission is not saying that DMK cannot promise free color TVs. All it's saying is, please put in your manifesto, it's going to cost 6,000 crores, 10,000 crores, 50,000 crores, how much ever it's going to cost, and where you're going to raise that money from. That's a fair requirement. That's a fair demand.
Well, Zaka, the rule of economics is that there is no free lunch. Somebody has to pay for somebody else to get a gain. And I can tell you, during our conversation today, it's a very enlightening conversation from all sides. I'm glad that Mr. Marathe has kind of agreed with me here when I said earlier on your show that the regressive GST or any indirect tax is a sign of an economy that is not yet mature. In a mature economy, you actually have higher direct tax collections. Point number one. Point number two, why are we so squeamish and, uncomfortable in biting the bullet and saying, listen, you also need to tax the rich in this country. You also need to tax a corporate sector that, in my opinion, is accentuating inequalities. Let me give you two examples. Mr. Modi talks of reverie, but he doesn't tell you the NPA write-offs running into lakhs of crores. Number two, the Nirmala Sitharaman announced a corporate tax rate cut. Now, I'm pro-market reforms, Zaka. But when you announce a 1.45 lakh crore annual corporate tax cut, and she actually said this will create jobs and private investment, which haven't happened 4 years later, it tells you that somebody is also getting a reverie who is frankly in the most affluent sections of India. Somebody explain that? That number runs into a staggering lakhs of crores. The third point, do we even know how many crony capitalists in India get public assets at discounted prices, which is actually lost revenue, which is actually the reverie argument that Mr. Modi needs to explain to the people of our country.
Nalan Mehta, you want to respond to that? Because opposition has been raising this again and again, even though it may be technical write-off, but when you're making that statement on television or in campaign speeches, it comes across as, you're giving freebies. Technical write-off of loans to corporate houses can also be considered a freebie. Why is that write-off of a loan any better economic sense than giving free color televisions or free wet grinders? Nalan Mehta.
No, I think that's an important debate to be had, Zaka. As far as corporate write-offs are concerned, I think that's a different part of the economy, and I think that's been going on for across two different regimes. It's been going on from the UPA time to the NDA time, because you also can't have the economy collapsing with major business houses going down, because some groups are too big to fail. I'm not holding a brief for any one group over the other and so on. But I think when the state spends its own money on welfare schemes as opposed to things which are clearly for political purpose, and eventually everything is political. But fundamentally, you have to make a distinction between what is an essential welfare good for those below the poverty line and what crosses that line. And that definition will, of course, vary, and there'll always be debate. But I think it's important to have transparency on that.
Mr. Dharanidharan, when you say that we give for every rupee of taxes that we give to the central government, we only get back 15 paise or 20 paise. The fact is that if you are going to do this, regionalization of taxes, then surely in your state, not every part of the state is industrially affluent. There could be parts of the state that are industrially affluent, and there are parts of the state that are not industrially affluent. So if tomorrow those regions start saying that we pay way more, thousands of crores more taxes than states that are than regions that are agrarian in nature, then would that be acceptable? It's the same thing as saying, okay, Maharashtra pays X number of taxes or Tamil Nadu pays X number of taxes. Why should they be indirectly subsidizing the poor people of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar?
Okay, yeah. So, see, we get 35 paise and not 15, 20. So, see, in India, as you go by constitution, India is a federal country, or rather quasi-federal country, and divided into states. And each state is supposed to get its due share. Under this government, that is reducing. And Tamil Nadu is the only state in the whole of India where industrial development is prevalent across the regions of Tamil Nadu. There's also been a wonderful book written by Professor Vijay Bhaskar called as the Dravidian Model. And again, I want to say, Modi's, Prime Minister Modi's advertisement cost per year is 5,000 crores. And we spend about 650 crores to give 1,000 rupees to women children going and joining colleges. For television, we spent about 1,000 crores. And again, GR, graduate enrollment ratio of Tamil Nadu is 52%, higher than that of the US, even Germany. And in Gujarat is 27%, Indian average is about 30%. And Vision 2030 of the Indian government is 50% graduate enrollment ratio. So we are far ahead. We achieved what Indian government wanted to achieve in 2030 and 2015. It's because of all these welfare schemes. In fact, in 1960s, our per capita GDP was same as that of UP, or even same as that of the average Indian per capita GDP. Now it is 2.5 times that of Uttar Pradesh. That is because of targeted interventions and social welfare schemes, which you call as freebies. For example, even the RBI governor under this government is a history graduate. What does he understand about economics? Leave alone anthropology. The election commissioner, for example, is a law graduate. In Tamil Nadu, you come. We have Nobel laureates in our panel to advise us on what kind of schemes to be launched. And based on that, we are launching schemes to uplift the state. So
all right. I'll give Vijay Sardana the final word. Will this have to, Election Commission has put out a proposal.
I would like to
political parties may or may not follow it. And ultimately, if the Election Commission cracks the whip and says this has to be implemented, then the parties will go back to court saying that this is intervening in the democratic process.
See, first of all, we have to understand that this is a disclosure, it is a transparency. This is a matter of transparency that you promise whatever you want. You call it freebie, you call it welfare, we don't care. Whatever you are promising, do a calculation, put an amount in the manifesto as a balance sheet of your promises. What is the total cost to the exchequer? And then you also put up what is going to be the source of the fund. Will you increase the taxes, or will you borrow more money from the banks for the states which are already bankrupt or virtually moving into debt trap, which is the SBI report comes in. So what is going to happen is that there is no way you can say no to it in transparency. So even if they go to Supreme Court, Supreme Court says you have to disclose. There is no problem in that. Why can't you calculate if you are promising? It means you don't know who are the beneficiaries. You have no idea what you are going to do. So are you technically going to mislead the voters? So it is accountability of the political parties to disclose how they have calculated this number. And that is going to create a more informed debate in the society. Voters will debate, media will debate, people will ask the questions and slowly the discipline fall in place.
All right, last 30 seconds, no more than 30 seconds. Vinit Goenka, quickly, please.
Yeah.
Quickly,
so
I have to wrap up.
whereas they're supposed to pay the DTC, they're supposed to pay for this. 13,000 crore rupees is due to MCD. They have not even transferred 457 crore rupees, which is a transfer fee. And let me just compare one scheme of the freebies which has been doled by the Aam Aadmi Party here. Aam Aadmi Party gives free, they give monthly payments to the imams, which may not contribute back to the society, whereas central government pushed, they helped 46,589 Muslim students to go overseas and have post-graduation studies. Now, this is the difference.
I got to wrap up. I'm completely out of time. I'm completely out of time. Thank you very much. Vinit Goenka, Akshay Marathe, Sanjay Jha, Nalit Mehta. Completely out of time. Sorry about that. But look, I think, yes, I think one of the panelists said that there needs to be an informed debate. It can't be a diktat either from the Supreme Court or from the Election Commission. But ultimately, if you are going to allow future generations to pay for the freebies that you are acquiring right now, the freebies that you're announcing right now, and then that puts a burden on future generations, that is absolutely unacceptable. It's something that Western countries are facing right now, where they are having to support a much larger, older, non-working population because the state's finances are so badly stretched. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, right on the other side, we'll have all the fast news stories of the day in Brass Tax Superfast.